Mm. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Hello. Welcome to Art Therapy Without Borders, Embracing Diversity in Healing Practices, hosted by ALT Alliance. My name is Yue Fen, and I am honored to be your moderator for today's discussion on cultural diversity in the art therapy field. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists and audience. Today, we will explore effective therapeutic approaches in diverse communities, innovative solutions for client care, future policy developments to advance art therapy for BIPOC communities. As a dedicated member of the art healing community, ALT Alliance aims to empower communities through art-based healings. Today, we will engage in meaningful conversations, share insights, and provide actionable takeaways to inspire more art therapists and practitioners to integrate diverse healing processes into their work. And so housekeeping notes. Before we begin, I'd like to share today's agenda and a few quick sound housekeeping notes. The panel will include about 40 minutes of presentations, followed by a 10-minute discussion session, and we will conclude with a Q&A session with the audience. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A button below to submit them. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to the event page and ALT Alliance's website. You will receive an email notification once it is available. Lastly, let's just keep the conversation engaging and respectful. And now, without further ado, let's begin our presentation. So first, I'd like to introduce Natasha Green. Natasha is a Black Japanese licensed professional clinical counselor and registered art therapist. She is also the founder of Green Amethyst Healing Grounds, where she provides open studio community-based art therapy, workshops, and retreats. She will be sharing her experiences in fostering culturally mindful therapeutic environments. So, Natasha, ready?
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Natasha Green. As you said, I will be talking about culturally responsive art therapy. Okay, so as you also introduced me, I am a board certified registered art therapist. I'm also a licensed professional clinical counselor. I work for my private practice, Green Amethyst Art Therapy. I'm the owner, and I have one employee. Um, my specialty is neuroscience trauma-informed art therapy, so I work with mostly clients with PTSD, also anxiety and depression. I do also offer traditional talk therapy as a LPCC, but primarily use art therapy. I work with individuals 13 and older. I do groups and various retreats also in my studio. So Green Amethyst Healing Grounds is my physical studio space here. Okay, so art therapy is culturally responsive. So art therapy or art itself is subjective in nature. It increases the authenticity of the client due to the subjective nature of art making itself. It provides validation of personal experience. It encourages self-expression, allows clients to feel seen and understood by representing their thoughts and feelings through meaningful symbolism. It increases sense of self and identity by allowing clients to be non-judgmentally express themselves. Externalizing inner thoughts and feelings increases self-awareness and insight. Art overcomes language and communication barriers. I have a peer who always says, where our language ends, art begins. So art gives voice to feelings and thoughts that are difficult to communicate or translate from one language to another. And it also decreases chances of misinterpretation.
I just checked your website. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think I have interest in reading more, checking the more art activities.
So exploring cultural identity. So in session 1 or 2 or both, I typically have my clients start the exploration period of just exploring how culture has kind of defined who they are or influenced who they are. And so the image on the left there is my culture doll that I did in grad school. And so just using symbolism to represent kind of who I am. And so the black clothes underneath represent me being Black American, kind of a nod to the Black Panthers. Kimono on top represents my Japanese culture. My mom is half, I'm a quarter. My grandma is full Japanese. And then I have a camel headband that's kind of hard to see, but that represents me being an Air Force brat, which means my father was the Air Force. We moved around. I grew up on Air Force bases in the military. And then I have a winky face, kind of a nod to me being a Pisces, kind of the fantasy world versus being in reality. And so this kind of just shows how, other than race and ethnicity, we're also influenced by, like I said, growing up on an Air Force base, right? The military culture. And then also how me being a Pisces kind of influences my personality. And then on the right there is a client's sculpture of kind of exploring adoption, right? And attachment style based on her upbringing as an adopted child. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, and then this is the use of symbolism in art making. So the first image there is a client from Togo, Africa, and she used African colors, she used symbolism in her artwork there. The middle one is an Indian client who is exploring masking in white spaces. So she did that through the symbolism of jewelry on the left under the white women there, and then kind of how she feels she has to put jewelry on each day. That's how she feels she has to put a mask on when she enters society. And then the right one there was made by a 12-year-old Mexican and white client. And she used Mexican flag colors and then the symbolism of a bird, which is important in the Mexican culture. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so then this was a fourth grade group that I ran at a school, a private school, and it was a Catholic school, so they had to wear, uniforms every day. They had majority white educators. And so this group was really meant to let them express themselves and kind of explore their culture and be able to, represent their culture in a way that they weren't able to due to the strictness of the school. The uniform policy. And so the prompt here was to create superheroes and using puppets. And what was interesting to me is that this was supposed to be a one-day group or a one-day session for this specific art directive. And it actually turned into 2 days because the first day they spent so much time on the hair. And so you can see just adding highlights, right? They unraveled the yarn, some of them braided it, twisted it, added beads. But what I thought was most interesting is that they all acted like they were in a salon doing people's hair. And so they would talk and ask their puppet, how would you like your hair today? And they'd have conversations with each other. So this is one of those times where the shared culture experience was more important than the art directive itself. And it just gave the girls a space to kind of identify and experience just that togetherness and that cultural experience. Okay, and so I would say having a diverse art media, a supply of art materials that allows for different cultures to feel seen is probably the most important thing when working with diverse populations in art therapy. And so on the left there, you can see I have a little person. I have multiple shades of skin color for them to choose from. That kind of second middle image there is pattern paper that I have. And so it has different kind of African patterns. And then the middle one there is just magazines. And so just making sure that if you're doing collage, that you have magazines that have a variety of, populations, cultures, races, ethnicities that your clients can choose from. And I do want to point out, I love that this client chose Angelina Jolie to add on there because she said she's an honorary mention because she raised a strong Black woman. So I love that she added that there. And then on the right there, it's just various beads. So I've got some Dia de los Muertos. I'm gonna butcher that, I'm sorry, but the Day of the Dead beads there that a Latina client I was working with picked out, and then also some Aztec kind of beads. So just having different, like I said, art media that clients can relate to. Okay, and then art therapy as a safer approach to therapy. I'm going to read the quote here from a client of mine. There's so much stigma regarding seeking mental health services within the Black community. Art therapy and the ability to communicate non-verbally and creatively express myself seemed like a safe way to begin my healing journey. And so I actually did my graduate thesis on stigma in the Black community and how art therapy can combat that. And so I think there is an idea that, being able to create and express your feelings non-verbally is a little safer than traditional talk therapy, especially if we're talking about cultures that are not, white American. And so I also added a collage here from a man. I think men are also a little more hesitant of talk therapy just based on history and society. And so it's interesting this year, I have about 40% men on my caseload, which is complete shift from years earlier. Maybe it was 5 or 10%. And so there is a shift, which I'm glad we're seeing in the mental health field. But I do think art therapy feels a little safer to people that maybe are afraid of what talk therapy looks like, or maybe they don't know what to talk about, what to say. It does give the client a little more control over what they disclose. It's a little safer, like I said, to talk about something on paper versus, directly looking at someone in the eye and talking to them. And so the image on the right there is also another image created by an African client of mine, and just kind of those that represented her feelings and swirlings and kind of feeling overcome by emotions. But yes, so that's that one. Okay, and that was it. So thank you again. This is my information. If you want to reach out via email, my website's there also, and then my Instagram handle. I don't post much, but you can reach me through that.
Thank you so much, Natasha. That's so beautiful. I was especially touched when you say about, there's a lot of stigma facing the stigma of, cultural art therapy in, in minority communities, like in BIPOC community, like how do we eliminate the stigma? There are a lot of things to do, work to do in the future. So yeah, thinking about that. And then great. So next we have Xingyi Li. So Xingyi, you want to start putting out your slides to see if the share screen is still working. So Xingyi is a second-year PhD student in art therapy research and practice research and practice at Florida State University and a registered art therapist. She has extensive experience in the US and China across schools, mental health facilities, communities, and museums. She designs individualized interventions and has led group and individual sessions to foster growth through both verbal and non-verbal communication. Today, she will share her insights on navigating diverse cultural settings in art therapy practice. Oh, great, it's working.
Okay, I unmute myself finally. And thank you, Yue, for your introduction and having me for this panel discussion. I think you have did my introduction, so I'm not going to repeat that again. So today I'm going to talk about my work experience in both China and the US and what I learned from it. Let me just quickly check. Okay, good. Okay, this is my content. I categorize my experience into 3 contexts or settings. I will also share the features and differences of working under each context in China and the US. The comparison and highlights mainly come from my experience. As a result, for some factors, such as insurance in the US, one of the significant factors will be left out because I did not experience it and know about it directly. So first, I will talk about working with individuals or in groups in China. And this image comes from one of the young clients I worked with in Shenzhen, China. This client was really shy and lack of confidence. I used play therapy and a child-centered approach to have him play freely. And build self-esteem and a sense of competence. He used the building blocks creatively to make a construction and domino. And this image comes from a male adolescent. She was discouraged and chose not to go to school then, and she had minimal art making experience. I asked him to use symbols to represent events or objects that were influential to him, both positively and negatively on his timeline. He made abstract drawings that were meaningful, and we had a discussion afterwards. This image comes from the same adolescent client. He created this piece of artwork later in sessions. You can see that he can use painting and colors and is more relaxed. He returned to school later on. So from my work experience, I think in China in general, the need and awareness of mental health services is growing for families and individuals. For the parents and child, most needs are academic performance, stress from school, lack of confidence, lack of the ability to express themselves freely, parenting styles, and knowledge. Moreover, the majority of the clients had minimum art making experience and were restricted when they were asked to make art. As a result, I used many toys and board games, especially at the beginning of the sessions, and asked them to use art materials that were easy to control, such as color pencils, markers, and collage. I used painting and more complex art materials when the clients were ready and when we have developed a good rapport. One of the challenges was that a lot of clients didn't know that much about art therapy, and they did not have a lot of confidence in using art therapy. So one of my responsibilities was to provide them with information about art therapy and its functions. But this is the challenge for art therapy in various settings. Another challenge is that people in China have to pay out of their pockets for the services of mental health, and they're usually not cheap, which could be a huge burden for families and individuals. There are some free services in the community centers, but they are not always available. In addition, the institutes or commercial models could be a constraint for both the clients and the therapists due to the lack of regulation in the field and knowledge of how therapy or counseling works. And this image comes from my work experience in the US. He had trauma from his family. He drew a black cat in a bright environment with a sun and grass. But he said that this environment made it hard for the cat to hide, which we may not know from looking at the image alone. And this artwork was made by a female client who also had lots of trauma. She used clay to represent the strength and the belief system of her religion, which helped her to find resolutions. I needed to understand the importance of religion in this client's life. So in general, in US, when working with clients, I feel that they have more knowledge and experience with art therapy or counseling, and they can be more involved and willing to make art and talk about themselves and their life issues unless they are guarded. My challenge is that I need to be more culturally sensitive and knowledgeable to understand their expressions, languages, issues, and obstacles and support they encounter from the social systems. So now let's move on to working in school settings. So this installation is called Persona, and the artwork was created by grade 8 students. They also wrote about the meanings of the artwork and created the labels. This was a collaboration with an art teacher when I was working as a school counselor in a private K-12 school called Huitong School in Shenzhen, China. And there are some of the details and close-ups of this installation. Artwork created during after-school programs for elementary school students and middle school students in the same school. And this kindness tree is a collaboration with my colleagues in the mental health program. Our students and staff were asked to write something related to kindness on the hand-shaded paper and put it up collectively on the tree. I designed and set up this session for sensory experiences during the Mental Health Month activities. and more activities at the mental health event and the display of some students' artwork made during after-school programs. And this was an activity for the staff. They were asked to decorate a small piece of pre-draw paper with mental health and self-care, and then they will combine together to form an image with various hearts. So in China, I was able to work as a school counselor because there were fewer restrictions on the majors as long as you have proper training and work experience. The school setting offered me a variety of opportunities to use art therapy during the classes when I taught social emotional learning, hosted after-school programs, and participated in school-wide activities. I can also work with teachers to bring about interdisciplinary collaborations to achieve the best outcomes. Students enjoy making art to express themselves and as a coping skill. My challenge was the setting of a school where I have limited time in each class to have students make art. I have to bring all the art materials to the classrooms and rotate between different classrooms, which also was limited, like the use of the art materials. Besides, there were more students in a classroom than in a group session, which made it hard to have a deeper discussion and sharing. It was also hard to explore personal or sensitive topics during a class because students may not feel ready or safe. In addition, providing counseling services to students could be challenging in maintaining confidentiality when I have to discuss students' issues with their teachers and sometimes their parents, while maintaining the trust of the students to discuss their problems with me. And I'm sorry I couldn't provide pictures here from where I work in schools in the US through working at Queen's Museum, where the Art Access program collaborated with various schools, hospitals, and communities to bring museum-inspired and project-based art therapeutic services to multiple populations. As a result, I have the opportunity to bring art therapy to children with special needs and children and adolescents with mental health issues in a classroom. One of my challenges was the availability of funding to make these collaborations happen. Another one was the limitation of the settings, similar to the ones I mentioned about the time limits and materials. Another issue is duration. We couldn't provide services for the long term, but for a period of time or for a project, which may restrict the effectiveness of art therapy. The good news is that schools have greater acceptance of art-based interventions, especially for children with special needs. Last but not least, working in communities. The picture on the left shows a community art space activity in China to promote the services. The one on the right was a screenshot of my colleague and me when we have an online channel to discuss topics during the pandemic and lockdown. My work in communities in China was mainly done by working with the government. During the pandemic, we produced a majority of our programs online by having discussions on topics such as mental health, cultures, and current events. And we have to combine different modalities, not just art therapy. It was not that difficult for us to do our work because we were using the offices in the local community centers where social workers and other staff were stationed and used the titles and logos that were related to governmental work. We developed our platform quite easily through these resources. People develop an awareness of mental health, and our one-on-one counseling services were always booked. However, when we hosted public programming, it was better for us to focus on the asset, positive side, and preventative aspects. The topics sometimes were influenced by the work and themes promoted by the government, and we have to finish the consented amount of work signed in the contract with the government. Besides, regarding the field of art therapy in the community, many organizations and companies are providing therapeutic art therapies, like workshops to publics because of the growing awareness and need. However, regulations in this field are definitely needed. And this picture shows a display in the park in the US about the artwork children and adolescents make in a nonprofit organization called the Parent-Child Relationship Association when I worked with this organization. And the artwork was created for themed projects such as community environmental protection and children learning through arts. A project for emotional regulation for children. And then this is a workshop for personal development for adults. Community art making activities in Chinatown. This is collaborated with Cove MIC, another nonprofit organization for students and students with special needs. This is a community recorder project to document immigrant stories in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, New York. So when working in the US communities, it's important to be sensitive and proactive about the needs of the general public when applying for funding and developing programs. It's also common to work with nonprofit organizations and tailor the services for them and the populations they are serving. There could be vast potential and variations regarding the content and formats of the services, and you may need to be more flexible. So my lesson from my experience are that when working with populations in different cultural contexts, we need to be sensitive to cultural differences and norms, keep learning, and incorporate cultural elements in the design of activities and material preparation. Furthermore, we should be aware of our integrated identities, autography, as artists, researchers, teachers, learners, and art therapists. And we should use our skills and backgrounds as tools to work with different populations. Moreover, be self-aware of how our background and experience may influence us and our biases when working, and reflect on how we can do better. Genuine care and developing relationship with participants always work despite cultural differences. At last, be aware of the opportunities and limitations each setting provides. Be more adaptive and use the resources wisely to achieve your goals. Just as when I work in the school settings or in communities, I can create activities and programs that are specific to the site. Okay, thank you. And then please feel free to contact me through this email. I'm now studying at FSU, and yeah, feel free to ask me any question, and we will have a discussion afterwards.
Great. Thank you so much, Xingyi. I think your presence is so brilliant. Doing the comparison between China and the US is our therapy approaches are really refreshing. Like it's really refreshing. Like I would never compare that or but seeing a very organized comparison, it just opens my eyes a lot. Great. So yeah, our third panelist is Yurong. Yurong is a New York-based multidisciplinary artist and educator, specializing in traditional and contemporary art forms from East Asian, Indian, European, and Islamic cultures. She incorporates art as a therapeutic practice for self-expression and meditation. As a teaching artist at the Museum of Chinese in America, she inspires creative exploration and cultural connection. So Yurong, you want to start sharing your slides?
Yes, and while I'm talking, feel free to unmute you because I like chatting. So let me, I'm gonna start sharing. 1 second, let me see. If it's successful, let me know, okay? Okay, 1 second. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna share a few projects I'm doing. The first one is my website. I posted the events I have been doing. So I'm an art host for corporate events for adults, and another job for me is as a teaching artist at schools and at a Museum of Chinese in America. So it's different environment. Teaching adult and teaching kids, I start teaching kids first, and then I have to switch to teaching adults. So I noticed I have to change my way of teaching, and it's actually quite challenging for me. It's a personality. so I'll talk about the difference and in different environment. So here's a quick background. I received my BFA in product design from Parsons and MFA in painting from New York Studio School. So I do different medias, and I like the history part. I like how to make the paints. And look, this is me during pandemic. I got sick so often. I go once a month. And while teaching this school I was in, it was a school in Brooklyn. The families there, the kids are from low-income families, mostly Hispanic and Black students. And while teaching there, they inspires me in many different ways, not only artistic, but also their life. And I notice I didn't start as an art therapist. I just love art. I started doing art when I was about 3 years old. As a normal, most Chinese kids, my parents, they were very busy when they were young. So art for me is how I spend times when I'm alone. And I think it was Saturday. Every Saturday, I attend art classes. There's a Chinese brush painting, Chinese calligraphy, and children's art. For me, art, I didn't realize it when I was young, but art has always been a therapeutic process for me, and how to express my feelings and but I'm also more curious. So instead, I didn't notice that it was therapy, but it actually act like a therapy for me. So here's some work we did with the students. So this part is, if you have any question, feel free to ask me. So this part is the marble art. And when I was teaching with the younger students, I want to encourage them to do something creative. So when we're doing the marble art, or this one, it's called, I couldn't pronounce French words, décancomania. So basically, it's you fold the paper into half, and then you paint one side, and then you open it, so you have another more abstract image on the other side. So while I was teaching the younger students, I always tell them, say, today we're going to do some magic. Are you ready for some magic? And sometimes if the artwork is not that good, the student will tell me, they're so honest. They say, Miss Yu, this is not magic. So I have to try harder to something like, oh, let's do something magical. So when we're doing the marble art, I remember one kid said, Miss Yu, this is magic. Finally, it's magic. So I want to try to do something more fun, and also some project that they can do it together with the different students. And since like in the public schools, we have a lot of students, and to think about a project that is not too expensive. We use a lot of recycled materials and reusable materials, and some project that they can do it together, and they can chat together and see how collaborate art projects. And those this is one marble art, and I try to include different techniques, like we let the paints to drip, to splash the paints, to press it, and this one I created when I was younger, but I use it for kids because they like to poke the art. So I was trying to think of how many different ways we can do. In the art history, they have like, you can splash, you can tear it, you can even, but we are not doing that. So there's so many ways to create art. So I want to include those for the younger students, for their imaginations and creativities. So I did those, and I fold the doors maybe I didn't post those here, but I make origami dolls for each student. So they were like, and they can make their own clothes and hairstyles. But this is like for me to practice doing the origami dolls. And then here's some examples of doing origami bookmarks. I like functional art as well, and also I like cute. So something useful and cute, you can use it every day to have the spirit higher. And you can, use a straw, you can blow the paints away, and here's the image of them doing the marble art, and then here's doodling. While they're waiting for all the students to come to schools, I put a big sheet of paper on the ground, and they can just join, and then they will talk and doodle together. And in caustic, I don't recommend for too young student because this is very hot. But they didn't burn them, so I was very cautious. But we don't do it this often. And we also be dirty, and then this is good for like a 5-year-old or even younger, so they can like enjoy the paints. And they make some flowers, paper birds, and we choose our favorite food. We do we use a clay and Play-Doh, and we make your favorite food. One student, her favorite food is the medicine. It's like, I said, why is this? And she said, oh, this is the medicine my mom took every day. And it's this color, and this color. So her mom every day take 3 medicines. And so she said, oh, this is her favorite. I don't know what. So we have different. And here's like a lot of people like junk food. Here. It's a lot of pizzas and burgers. So, and this is here is so I mixed different images. Some were from the school, some were from the museum, and some were from the libraries. The mooncake are for the Chinese festival. And we make, since I'm Chinese, so we have to eat some Chinese food. We have to make some dumplings and steamed buns, mooncake. I try to ask them to eat healthy. So since they make a lot of burgers and fries, I said, oh, let's try something healthy. So they will try to make me happy. I say, oh, strawberry and all this. So, and we make some window arts, dragon boats for dragon ears. Oh, wait, dragon boat, no, yeah, dragon ears. And we also have like a print making suitable for kids. So they can use real plants, real vegetables, to stamp. And here's some adult join our group, and they splash their paints. We did some shadow art. And this one is for the AAPI. Did I pronounce it correctly? So that year we need to how to say, it's an event for the female what's it called, in Chinatown. There was a lot of females, they are making clothes, so we want to remember those people. So okay, so one project is we make our own clothes, and all the students become their own designers, and we use different materials to make your own clothes. And you can put your head over there, and so you are the designer and you are the model. Okay, so here's different photos. I'll be a little bit faster and then we have a scratch. So the goal is to do something creative and fun. So you will see me including different medias over here. Okay, and then we have to do print making for kids. We would think about what's the safer ways. Instead of using those knife and the rubber, we use the styrofoam, and you can just paper cut and stamp it. So it's easier, cheaper, and fun for the kids. And you can we like to go plein air, to be in nature, enjoy to see the flowers, see the plants. And I encourage the students to go outside. Also, it's actually in the canvas, campus. So they are tracing the plants, see the shadows, and do some art together. So I'll be okay, almost, and they poke it together, and we use different materials, many different like the materials I could find. So I try my best to do different things. And then calligraphy for the Museum of Chinese in America. Some people, they come here to learn how to draw, how to use the brush. And the different cultures, we have different art techniques, and behind it, it's different philosophies. So for example, when we do oil painting, the brush, you hold it like this way. So you can only move your brush in a certain way. Of course, you can use a knife or different materials. But if, for example, like a Chinese brush painting, you hold the brush differently, and it needs a different type of movement. You need to see how, if you're drawing a tree, how the trees look like. Is it dry, or is it soft, like a flower petals? It has a lot of water inside. So we'll use a different type of brush, like a softer brush, and you move gently to depict the essence of the things. So we don't use the same brush for everything, and we don't move just like this way. You have to have some energy. So to introduce people from different backgrounds and about other cultures, how they do the art, and what's the reason behind it, I feel it's quite fun for me to have a bridge in understanding why we do things differently. Different, of course, other culture has their way to see the world differently. Like some are bird views, you see from the gods, like from heaven's perspective. So it's fun to see different ways and to do art, and know art from different cultures. So I'm gonna finish. Okay, this one is fun too. So we are using the shaving creams. It's an alternative marble art techniques. Some art techniques, so they are not only popular for younger participants, but also adult. So now the problem in our museum is we have a lot of adult coming to the class. So we're trying to have a different class for them. But I think it's okay, I'll be faster, and then we try to include some games. So here's a game I've created. It's art games. So the younger student, they come here, we play a game, and so this is a map of the Chinatown from my imagination. But some locations are based on, for example, some stores, they sell cheap how the traditional clothes, or some has dim sum. They have a longer history of having a dim sum restaurant. So I try to keep, and there's a statue. Maybe I can open it, can I? Okay, I cannot. So I tried like the statue, the Sun Zongshan, and some place you can play mahjong. You can drink your tea house, the poetry. So and opera, the Beijing Opera, the Chinese, the herbal medicine, and the ice cream place. So I include those locations. And when you get a what's it called, die, we have a few dice, and they will get the number, and they will go to there and say, oh, now I have to do this one project. So each number represents a different project. It took forever to design that, but it was really meaningful for me. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. So I'm gonna ask, let me see, how to make art therapy more accessible to underserved and marginalized communities. So my advice is to use more recycled and reusable material for self-expression, and to reduce the cost and encourage creativity. Also, they have a free art courses and workshop at local community centers where they can attend. Okay, let me see if I have one more thing or not. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
We're gonna have we're running against the time. So
Oh, sorry, everybody.
yeah,
I talk like a waterfall.
one more
That's a
presentation.
problem.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Actually,
Yeah, if you can help me.
yes, sure.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm so sorry, I love your work so much. They're so pretty.
Next time, after the meeting, we can talk more if you want to. I'm joking.
Let's talk to Ashley. Let's talk to you. Like, we're gonna give out your guys' information in the thank you email, after the panel discussion. We will include your websites, emails, in a later email. At first, yes. And the last, we finally have Ashley Resurrection. Ashley is a Filipino American master level creative healer, and with a background in education, mental health, and art. Her work focuses on addressing trauma and systemic issues in society. Today, she will be sharing her insights with us. Yes.
Hello, everyone. I think we'll just skip to the second slide since there's a shortage of time. My colleagues shared a lot about cultural diversity in art therapy already, as well as like their specific examples of it. But I just want to share more of the framework and how we can put this all together, right? So cultural diversity in our art therapy career, like when we think of that, we want to think of Western versus non-Western, or what's otherwise called anti-colonial models of therapy. So consider the intersectionality of your identity. Be open to learning and immersing yourself in the culture of your clients and learning about your clients' identities. And make sure to validate your clients' experiences and share space with them by using both and. Oftentimes in marginalized communities, we might experience othering, we might experience this in-between space of being in America versus being in Philippines, or being in China versus being in UK. And so we want to always share that both and exist, both what we feel, as people in marginalized communities versus what we feel as people who are in power or in dominant communities. Both of those experiences matter, and they will always show up in a certain way to our clients. And I'm going to show an example of what these frameworks are, so you're not just listening to me talk. If we go to the next slide. Yeah, this slide shows the intersectionality wheel of privilege. So right here off the bat in the center, you see power, right? And at the bottom of it, you see marginalized. In Western societies, you'll often see this kind of dynamic. There's a dichotomy, it's either or, but like I said, we want to focus on both and, right? So how do we do that? We do that by considering every part of our identity, every part of our values, our cultural traditions, and what we do to either assimilate or acculturate in our society, wherever that might be. And so sometimes that might include looking at our skin color, our body size, our gender, even transportation, political affiliation, how we think about housing and recreation, age, wealth. All these different things make up who we are and who our clients and participants are in the community. So if we go to the next slide, though. Oh, did you guys freeze? Did I freeze? Okay, next slide, we actually see something called the First Nations Mental Wellness Continuum. And off the bat, right, you can see this is a completely different circle. There's no isolation, there's no division. Everything is together and concentric and connected, right? So instead of thinking of wellness as, well, I'm this or that, how about, oh, I'm part of this culture. I think about housing and community in this way, and I want to belong and have purpose, right? Feel calmness and find wisdom with my elders. The way that we frame our therapy sessions or therapeutic workshops in art is really impactful for our community. And so I use these kinds of things to kind of share how identity formation works in therapy, as well as show the difference. We're a lot happier if we're looking at, oh, how many connections do I have? How much do I feel I belong in a community versus what do I have or have not, right? We'll go to the next slide. And this one is about working with diverse communities. Okay, so we've talked about identity, and now how do we put that into practice? How do we put those frameworks into practice? As a therapist, I like to acculturate by learning my participants' interests, values, and traditions, and look at what's normal and celebrated in their communities. What that means is I might go out and learn the language. I might go out to their events. I might try to, help out and volunteer in their community settings in order to understand where the people I'm working with come from. And another thing that's important is being resourceful with what I have access to. Some of my colleagues talked about how we all kind of use recycled materials and things. We also want to use what they have. Maybe they have clothes that they want to weave with. Maybe there's different food that they want to cook, and we can have a meditative exploration with that. So those kinds of things are important to incorporate culture. And at the same time, right, practicing both and we want to practice self-care. So the second thing I have on this slide is how do we practice that? We're talking about really deep conversations. We're talking about really deep identity explorations, and sometimes that can be very sensitive. We want to be gentle with each other, and we want to stay connected with people and give space after therapy. Yeah, okay, we'll go to the next slide. Yes, so over here, I have a couple of examples. I was able to work with some youth that were formerly incarcerated. So I've worked with prisons and homeless shelters and schools. At the homeless shelter, sometimes the kids came out of juvie or something like that, and they would, find their way and then eventually try to, make a life for themselves. And this is an example of them using an Indigenous circle of wellness in order to create their own hearts out of canvases that we cut together. So I brought in canvases that were recycled. Somebody had put them on Facebook Marketplace, on the Buy Nothing group and such. So I picked up those canvases and we used that and the thread that we had, needles that we had to just make something new out of those canvases. And here the expressions are of grief and empowerment. In the next example or slide, we will talk about improving cultural accessibility. So yeah, just to sum up, let's learn from our cultural mentors, healers, and leaders, share and use art making techniques specifically from the cultures of our clients. And as therapists, we can lead therapeutic art groups in community. We don't always have to do one-on-ones with people in therapy. We can make it therapeutic so that more people can access art therapy. If we go down one more slide. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you all have shared with us today, and thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I think your presentation really wraps up the entire panel discussion. It's all about communities, like where we belong, just serving the communities well, using arts, using the power of art. Yeah, I think that's excellent. And well, theoretically, we only have 3 minutes left, but well, but I still want to go through my discussion questions. Hold on, just get my presentation out because I still want to us to think about some critical questions. Give me a moment. I know the time is really running out, but I just need to find the tab. Okay, so we are going to in the discussion questions. Still cannot find my tab in the share screen menu. Just technology, isn't it? Okay, cool, finally. Okay, so audience, dear audience, if you're willing, you can leave if you have, further event, planning ahead, like feel free to leave, but if you're able to stay, we welcome. And we will make it real quick because I'm gonna just ask these 2 questions for now for the time sensitive. So what are the challenges? So, hearing about your wonderful, wonderful discussion, what are the challenges, as a therapist, as a BIPOC artist, what are the challenges in adapting Western-based art therapy techniques to non-Western cultural context? Do you guys observe that, like, in your practices, experience, or, have any insights on this question? Just feel free to unmute yourself and share your insights. Like,
I can share something. I think definitely it's difficult because I learned art therapy in the Western world, and I learned the terms and the techniques and populations and like how we work with clients, like the procedures and everything. So it's not easy to apply directly to a non-Western culture context. I think also more than that, it's not just about art therapy, it's about the whole environment. Like we need to know more about, for example, how parents think when they think about successful, like for their children, success of their children. They may think more about how to make them more academically successful instead of being more happy. Just I think we have different definition and notions. And also, I mean, it's just a interactive and intertwined context, not just about art therapy, but it's about the whole system behind it. And also, I also want to talk about the difference that we may not be able to apply to the non-Western culture context. For example, we have a house tree person as an assessment, like art therapy assessment. And with that one, I remember that there's something about, it talks about if there's a hole on the trunk, and it means there are some trauma in that person's life. But then that also comes from like when the Westerner, like children, when they read their children's book, they have this hole in the trunk, so they get used to it. But then when in China, in Chinese children's book, we do not have that at all. So even if they have trauma, they may not draw this on their trunk. So we have to like get to know their stories, talk to them instead of just making simple assumptions.
I agree. Anyone else wants to add on that?
Can add a short answer. I try to be short, yeah. So I feel like for me, when I observing in the schools and especially museum, because museum I have a lot of Chinese. The parents, they're Chinese, and then you have non-Chinese families from different cultures. For me, I feel like the Western-based art therapy, it seems like they're focusing on self-expression. You verbalize how you feel, and then they analyze your way of thinking. But I feel like in Asia cultures, it's more the therapy is more like a Zen art culture. It's not really about self-expression. Rather, it's about you harmony, like you like in silence you heal, not like expression. So for example, one experience I had when I was pursuing my MFA in New York, one professor said, show me your pain through your art. And I felt so embarrassed that it was like, so I feel like to show it, I feel it might be different culture, or I don't know, different personalities. You have to feel safe to show. You don't feel safe to everybody. And also bluntly to show the pain. And also some people might not trust their emotions that well. Like emotions, if you're like in Asia cultures, especially Zen or Buddhism, that's ephemeral. It's gonna pass. If you trust your emotions, you're trusting on something it's not trustworthy. So our culture is like, oh, should I show my bottom? I don't trust it. I'm just letting it go in silent. So I think for me, that's a challenge because it's a different way to see the problems.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a great answer. The cultural, it's like back to the very the root of the philosophical thinking, like different ideologies and social norms. It's like back like the differences from the root. I don't know how to describe it better, but it's like we need to maybe it's better that that the East Asian country, like non-Western countries, can start will build their own, like our own, system of, therapeutic approaches. Like, I don't know, because I am not an art therapist, but I think that we need to find a method that suits our need, actually suits the needs of the population. That's that will be great, I guess. Yes. Okay, let's get to the second questions. How can non-art therapists incorporate cultural arts into healing practice? I asked this question because I am, ALT Alliance is focuses on empowering communities in empowering through art healing programs. So, and I think it's many questions from the community centers, museums, like how do we turn this public space into a healing ground, for public? Like how do we combine this cultural arts into this public space to make it a healing space for people, actually? Do you guys have any insights? Wants to share something? Yes, sure.
I
Go
would
ahead.
definitely like to share since I didn't get enough time to speak, but um like I want to go back to the example that I shared about leading cultural workshops. So I've been to a lot of events here in Los Angeles where Indigenous folks will lead workshops. They'll make dyed clothes with native plants. They'll do beading, they'll do basket weaving, or they'll even do dances. They'll do dances and music and teach you how to use their instruments and things like that as well. And by going to those kinds of events, I think that you can learn a lot more and then bring it into the workshops. Ask those leaders to lead those workshops or to lead therapeutic groups or things like that. Um, and then for non-clinical clients that I've seen in California, like I'm from Van Nuys, it's considered the hood, one of the hoods at least. And we enjoy things like graffiti, spoken word poetry, rap, street photography, murals, and even other art forms that are indicative of Los Angeles culture as a whole. And so when we give people spaces and we take spaces for ourselves, whether that's abandoned buildings or that's like the park, we can do those kinds of artworks together. And I think that like making it more accessible, making it more casual and fun and open, makes it more safe to be ourselves. Whereas with some art therapy places, it's like you have to register and you can only be in this closed group, which is very indicative of Western ways of thinking. And the other places I've been in, there's always more of a free flow to the art. So
Yes, I'll add on to what Ashley was saying, right? Reach out and have community members lead workshops, right? Lead those groups, those retreats. And also, I love that Ashley said, like, incorporating things we see out in the world into the space, right? I've done graffiti fences where we made fences out of popsicle sticks and then they painted on it, but it was as if they're doing graffiti, right? So yes, absolutely leaning into the community, finding spaces. We've done murals that were temporary, where we just get the long sheets of paper and spread it down the sidewalk, right? And then they use chalk or paint sticks. And so, yes, just finding ways to do things that are culturally relevant and is in a way that's either temporary or that's inviting to all people.
I mean, exactly. I totally agree what you're saying. Finding open space. Let's just organize these public events more, like inviting people to come to know, to learn more about our therapy, their emotions, and let the public space become, return make the public space for public, open it to them. Yes. Okay, so I actually have some more questions, but it's time sensitive and this too. So let's just skip those. And it's Q&A sessions. If you have questions, dear audience, we're happy to answer any questions from you guys. Just let me check the tab just let me check the tab really quick. There any Q&A here? No, well, it shows no open questions for now. So If you guys have, just feel free to ask. Or, you can always reach out to our wonderful panelists, for, telling your afterthoughts, if you, just feel free to connect with them because I will include their contact information in the upcoming email. Oh, there's anonymous attendee asking, how to follow Yurong? Are you on Red Note? How to follow you?
Me? Oh my God, you didn't complain I talk too much. I'm so glad. Yeah. Me, yeah?
Yeah.
My God, my face is turning. I have my website and also I have my Instagram, but that's for the family program. So you will see a lot of mom following me, and you can also follow my emotional support. Are you ready for it? Are you ready, everybody? My baby. She I use her social media. But you can have my website and I have Instagram, but she has more follower than me.
Okay. So definitely. If you, dear our panelists, we're willing, I will share your contact information and email contact information and websites to the, I will include it then in a thank you email after this event standing out. So you guys can feel free to reach out to them, to talk to them. You see Yu is very happy to share her experiences with you guys. So yeah, we are open to it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Any more questions? So that will be the end of the panel discussion. So thank you to our incredible panelists for sharing your time, expertise, and valuable insights. And thank you to our audience for your thoughtful participation and for willing to stay with us for, beyond the expected time. But if you would like to continue the conversation or provide feedback, please visit artlawtech.org or email us at contact@artlawtech.org. The panel recording will be available within 48 hours on the event landing page and ALT Alliance's website. You will also receive an email notification once it is uploaded. With that, we conclude today's discussion. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day or night. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank
Would you share Ashley, Xingyi, and Natasha's email? Is it okay? Was I already asking?
Definitely. I will
It's
include
so nice
everybody.
to hear from because is more professional. You're doing the therapy, so it will be fun to communicate together.
Yeah, sure. I will include everybody's address. Yes. So you guys feel free to connect each other. Feel free.
Welcome to New York. We can drink tea together.
Hey,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
you.
Bye.